What do you say, everybody? Welcome to Monday Night Quarterback with Trey, Yanity. I'm Mick, Gillispie, and we appreciate you being here on your holiday, right? Part of the holiday break on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Hit the thumbs up as you hang out with us tonight. And we all know that coming up on Friday, New Year's Eve, Alabama and Cincinnati for a chance to play for the national championship. Alabama has played so well in these first-round games since they started the college football playoff, but they have a really unique opponent this year, a team outside of the power conferences in Cincinnati with a lot of really good players and a former Alabama running back. So we'll get into that as well. We'll hear from Nick Saban, Alabama's head coach, Luke Fickle. But before we do that or anything else, let me remind you that the show is brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. Right there, 200 steps from Bryant-Denny Stadium. WestgateAL.com gets you all the information that you need to know. I'm talking about the amazingly equipped, beautiful kitchens, the oversized balconies that look at Bryant-Denny and downtown Tuscaloosa. You can see campus, the Strip, Denny Chimes, all of that there. The game days are as good or better than any place that you're ever going to do a tailgate, and that's because of the Skygate Club, as you're looking at right there on top of the roof. It's amazing. That's where Trey and I did the post-game show this year. Jillian and the crew treat you so well. WestgateAL.com. They got 1 to 5 bedroom units that go from 900 to 3,000 square foot. And I promise you, it does not get any better. You come to town and you need a place to stay. You can also rent those. So check them out online, WestgateAL.com for more information. All right, Trey, let's talk a little bit of football. But first, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. How's your holiday so far?
It's been great, Mick. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody out there joining us tonight. Like you said, holiday break edition of Bama Insider again here. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. It's been a great holiday. You know, this is another year where we kind of relax a little bit more, spend some time with the family, get ready for another college football playoff. You know, this one was a little bit different. Last year around Christmas, we had the Heisman finalists coming out, you know, all the awards. Everything was a little bit later. This year we got that knocked out before Christmas, so able to kind of take a breath this holiday season. But, you know, it's been a lot of fun. As we get into this week, we had our interviews yesterday. Excited to run those with Nick Saban and Luke Fickle, just kind of breaking down this matchup, talking about, you know, some of the COVID issues and stuff like that. Excited to talk about that as well. Guys, get in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. Mick, how was your Christmas this year?
Look, it was great. I've enjoyed it. And, you know, I'm kind of ready to get back into the swing of things. It's exciting that Alabama made the college football playoff. They had to beat Georgia to do that. No one thought they would. Now, all of a sudden, they're number one again, and they've got the bullseye on their back. They arrived in Dallas this week. And, I mean, how cool is this? Like, with all of the COVID protocols going on right now, some bowl games being canceled, Alabama has done a tremendous job. Now, we're going to talk about Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone later on, who are dealing with COVID and COVID protocol. But Alabama has been at the forefront of being prepared for COVID and avoiding what has happened with some other teams where they aren't playing in their bowl game. And we know that if you don't play in the bowl game, you forfeit this year if you're Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is kind of developing, and it's going to be really interesting to see between all these four teams, you know, if there is a major outbreak 1-2 days before the game, how that's going to affect things. Because, you know, ultimately, I think this is worst case scenario. I don't think we're going to see this, but there's a chance we don't even have a national champion this year. You know, if things go completely wrong as we get closer to that date. But at this point, like you said, Alabama's done everything pretty much as well as you could have. Obviously, two pretty important coaches there, Doug Marrone and Bill O'Brien, coming down with the virus this week. But on a 10-day protocol now, you're going to get those guys back for the game. At this point, you know, we're kind of in that 0 hour. Nobody else could probably get COVID and come back in time for the football game. But, you know, there isn't anybody impactful at this point that we know of that is going to be affected. Bryce Young's going to be there. Brian Robinson, Jamison Williams. This offense and defense, you know, is looking healthy right now. You know, at least is looking COVID-free at this point, which is huge. As far as Cincinnati goes, they've handled it perfectly as well. Both teams, you know, look like they're a non-COVID team. It looks like a regular year. And I think that's important because Georgia has struggled with this, Michigan to an extent. So, you know, already having to play the more difficult 2-3 game, that could come back to bite them a little bit more as we get towards that national title. obviously that's rat poison. We don't want to think about that quite yet. You have to make it through this last few, these last few days out there in Dallas. But, COVID's changing things. We were going to have way more coverage out there. Now we get to do it virtually, and we're still going to cover this thing the same we would have. But, this is developing. Every day we're kind of finding out what's going to be different, or, what's looking more like last year than it is a COVID-free environment. And I think, Nick Saban, with everything in the program, is going to take it seriously and is going to, make sure every protocol is met. But, to this point, Alabama's been fine. I'm going to leave it at fine because there's still some time, for things to hit the skids. But that's just kind of the world we're living in right now. Anything can happen.
They've been really good at staying ahead of COVID. I mean, we saw that last year in 2020. And this all started when basketball was canceled. Nick Saban went out, got all the players Apple Watches just so that they could do their workouts and stay connected, even though they weren't with the program. And it just feels like they've kind of gone right back into that bubble, social distancing and getting ready. The funny part about this, or maybe not so funny, is you mentioned it. There could be no national champion. And that's if, say there were forfeits and you play the first round and then both of those teams couldn't play. You'd have a forfeit, no champ. Or if all four teams right here couldn't play. So I got a feeling that they're going to be super sensitive to anybody contaminating the players.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you look at how this has gone so far. We look at this from a fan perspective, or in our case from a media perspective, and sometimes I don't think we overlook the player aspect of things. But we have to think about these guys individually. They all want to play these games so bad, and anything that could mess that up is detrimental, obviously, at this point to any chance at a national championship. So for the players, we can think about this selfishly and think, well, how could he have gotten COVID, this, that, whatever. It's the holiday season and there's a lot going on. While Alabama's been great at this, you can't fault the players or the coaches or anything else while this is happening. There's still a pandemic going on. You and I are equally as likely to get this thing as a player is. It's just kind of the nature of how this has gone to this point. And, while sports have been an unbelievable way to kind of come together throughout this pandemic and, celebrate something that's not as serious and kind of get a relief from all of this stuff, sports aren't essential. And if it means a shutdown, I could see the NCAA or, even a greater body making that happen. I think we're at a point where that's probably unlikely. I think the more likely situation would be, like you said, two teams not being able to go to the national title and there's kind of a de facto champion. But, this is changing constantly. And as we record this show, by the time it airs, something could be different. So, I don't want to put anything out there that comes back to bite me here. But to this point, I think just continue to do what you're doing. I think it's big that everybody's in one spot now in Dallas, and you can kind of regulate everything a little bit more. Maybe they got a setting on those Apple Watches to make sure everything's going right. But, this is the home stretch, and Alabama has gotten to this point. Cincinnati, Georgia, Michigan, everybody's gotten to this point relatively unscathed. If you can just make it 5 more days, I think everybody's home free. And, as we look way into the future, I think once we get into 22 and get past spring football and into the fall, we really start to see all of this go away. So I think this is it. Realistically, you get through this stretch, these 5 days, then the next 10 days to the national title, and you might not have to worry about COVID, ever affecting your program again.
He's Trey Yanity. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up as we talk Alabama and Cincinnati. Their matchup on New Year's Eve day at 2:30 Central Time will determine who plays for the national championship. The one that Alabama took last year against Ohio State. And they're going to have to go through one of the toughest upstarts in college football history to get back there. Again, comment section. We appreciate all of you guys. Keep on firing them out as we talk Crimson Tide football on a Monday night like we always do. But again, like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up as we hang. All right, Nick Saban and company have arrived, as you saw there in Dallas. Let's listen to a few minutes of Nick Saban's press conference, Trey, and then we'll talk about what the ball coach had to say.
Well, certainly, first of all, I'd like to wish everyone a happy holiday. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas. And I hope that you all enjoyed it as much as we did. It's a great time for family. It's a great time to have gratitude for all that we should be thankful for. And we're excited about the opportunity that we have this week here in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. Rick Baker and the entire staff for all that you do to create a very positive atmosphere for our team is certainly appreciated. Our players have worked hard, all year for this opportunity. I think, we had good practices before Christmas, but I think that it's time for everybody to realize that, we're here in Dallas, now's the time. It's game week. We need to get ready to roll and sort of get recentered for what we want to try to accomplish and what we want to try to do. I think the legacy of any team is how you finish, and that's how you'll be remembered. So it's a great opportunity that our players have, and now it's time to focus on taking advantage of it.
If you have a question for Coach Saban, please use the raise hand function and we'll get to your question. Our first question will come from Charlie Potter from Bama Online. Charlie, go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Hey, Coach. Just wondering if you had an update on Coach O'Brien and Coach Marone. Were they able to travel you guys?
Right. No, we're using the same protocols that we used in the past, for COVID situations, and they will do all their work and coaching virtually with players, very similar to the way I did it when I tested positive before the Auburn game a year ago. They will join us, I think, the evening of the 29th or 30th or whenever their time is up before the game. So they'll be here for the game. I think they're both doing well. No one is, really that bad sick that they can't function and do things that they need to do with our players. In the meantime, Joe Pendry will be on the field to work with the offensive line, who has been here for a long time and was a former offensive line coach for us. And the two coaches that are gone will Zoom practice and Zoom the meetings and do all the things that they need to do.
All right, Trey, look, there he is. Nick Saban talking about the situation with COVID. He had COVID last year, so he's been through it. Your thoughts on, what you just heard from Coach Saban?
It's business as always. And I think whatever the problem is, if it's COVID or, if it's injuries or whatever the case is, he's gonna handle it seriously and maybe not give you the full side of the story here. He wants everything to stay within inside the program. And I think, he's being pretty transparent there. I think he expects those guys to be back for the game on the 31st and expects, everybody on his team to be healthy, or at least COVID-free, if they're not injury-free. But, like you said, he's had it. He knows what this is all about. And, he knows what his coaches are going through right now. Thankfully, Alabama, as players-wise, is loaded and has a lot of depth. That's the same thing with the coaching staff as well. And, while these guys will be back for the game, and Bill O'Brien and Doug Marone, these last couple weeks of practice, kind of make or break your season here going into the playoff. This is the last time, you're really going to get a practice at home and, have things at least relatively normal or, not have all the lights on you. So it's important to take advantage of that. I think that, like you said, Joe Pingree has come in and done what he does, been with the program for a while, kind of helped out the offensive line. And, overall, this is a great offensive coaching staff. Holman Wiggins, has done an excellent job with this team throughout this season. And I think, his leadership, Drew Savoda, a lot of these guys are just kind of filling in the gaps. And, to be honest with you, throughout the season, more than the whole offense, I've noticed Bill O'Brien as really the Bryce Young coach. So, maybe that's the area of the team that is missing the most here. Not as much one-on-one time with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. But overall, this is what it is. This Alabama program is run like an NFL team, and NFL players can do a lot on their own. They don't necessarily always need a coach there to hold their hand. I think this is kind of the same deal. And, with an NFL coach, two NFL coaches in Bill O'Brien and Doug Marone, I think they understand that, you can continue to work and continue to get things done via Zoom and be a professional, even if you're not there. And obviously this year's a bit different than last season. There's not quite as many cases and, missing guys means a little bit more. But, as far as the players go, they're good right now. And, as far as the coaches go, I think they're filling in those gaps, kind of making sure everybody's okay. But at this point, I think all signs are green. And, as long as they can get Bill O'Brien back and Doug Marone back, and they're able to scheme up enough over the Zoom calls, I think they're going to be okay. It's interesting to think that that's a conversation we're having right now. Dudes can, be coming up with an entire game plan for a semifinal a couple thousand miles away. But hey, it's 2021, about to be 2022. So, that's just what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Who do you think impacts Alabama more, Doug Marrone or Bill O'Brien? And then how about having Joe Pendry, who is one of the guys that one of my old partners, Mike Johnson, who played at Alabama, loved Joe Pendry. Talked about Joe Pendry helping him out as two-time All-American at Alabama, big part of the staff back then. To be able to just step into this situation, a guy that has a ton of football experience, and I think that that's one of the advantages that Alabama has with where this program is right now and Nick Saban.
It's crazy, Mick. I mean, we talk about the rotation and, a new coordinator coming in every year, but there's certain guys in this program that have really been able to, help this dynasty keep going. And Nick Saban, I think, would find a way, even if he lost every coach, every season. But, guys like Joe, guys like Sal Sunseri are kind of the backbone of this program and help keep it going. So I think, you lose too many of those guys, you're in a serious problem. But at this point, Alabama still has that backbone. And, while they won a Bill O'Brien, in person this next week, they didn't have Bill O'Brien at all last year, and they won the national title handily. This team isn't quite last year's team, and I think they do need a little bit more leadership, maybe a little bit more coaching. But, at this point in the season, you're either going to have it or you aren't. I don't think, that extra bit of coaching is going to push this team over the hill. Scheme-wise, I'm a little bit worried. And, the question, who's more important, Doug Marrone or Bill O'Brien? I think at practice, maybe Doug Marrone, but overall, Bill O'Brien, just because, he's writing the offense to an extent, and he's coming up with, all these plays. So if he's not able to click like we saw at Georgia, Alabama could lose to anybody. They almost lost to Auburn. They didn't put up a touchdown until, the very, very end of that game. So I think that's the biggest worry, is that they can't find that rhythm. They can't click early because of the missed time. But you have a future NFL quarterback on your team working with a former NFL head coach. I think that's, they're going to be okay either way. But I think that's a little bit bigger of a loss maybe than Doug Marrone, even though he might be a bigger presence at practice overall.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, and that's what they're going to have to figure out here going in, taking on Luke Fickle in Cincinnati. We're going to hear from Luke Fickle, the Cincinnati head coach, talking about Nick Saban. But guys, as you hang out with us on Monday Night QB, hit us with a thumbs up, like and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate you guys being a part of our coverage of Alabama football as they try to get back to the national championship game. They're a 13.5-point favorite over Cincinnati. Here's Luke Fickle talking a little bit about Nick Saban in Alabama and his thoughts on this game.
And coached with, and with people who have found their way into the orbit of Coach Saban. One, have you reached out to some of the people that you've either played with or coached with in the past who have also played for and or coached for Coach Saban? And if so, what insights have they given you?
No, not a whole lot, to be honest with you. I've studied Coach for a long time, and not playing against him, just in general of all the things that they've done and what he's done, whether it was at Michigan State or even obviously at Alabama. So I don't know that there was any other insights. I don't get it. Obviously, Coach Mark D'Antonio is a really close friend of mine, and he coached for Coach Saban for a few years at Michigan State. But it's not like I sat down to try to pick his brain to say, hey, how does he go about a bowl game and this, that, and the other thing. I think, like you said, we've seen a lot of football. You can study every game they've got the whole season. I've watched them play for years and years and years, and you're going to get some things that are a little bit different. But I think sometimes we can do a little bit too much, and then you start to get yourself into that frenzy where you can't really be yourself. You can't focus upon yourself and the things that you got to do, because maybe you're ultimately overly worried about all the different things that you have no idea exactly what it is that they could do, but you're trying to speculate. So, you kind of close down a little bit more and try to assume the things that you would assume, and just know that there are going to be adjustments to be made. Obviously, great coaches are going to do some different things, especially with a 3-week break. And I think one of the big things about this game in general, bowl games in particular, playoffs, more than anyone, I think that the ability to make those adjustments from the first quarter, the first drive or so into that second half is where, to me, the real part of the game and the kind of the game within the game, I think will be.
Hey, Trey Yanity. I'm Mick Gillispie as we talk about Alabama football and their matchup with Cincinnati. 13.5, 14-point favorite against Luke Fickle. He was the offensive coordinator when Ohio State beat Alabama. The only loss that Nick Saban's teams have had in the first round of the college football playoff. He talks about this matchup. He knows about Alabama. And I'll tell you what, he seemed awful confident there, Trey.
He did. And, this is kind of the way he seemed from the get-go since this matchup was announced and, from the start of the season and really the start of his time at Cincinnati. This is a good football coach in Luke Fickle and, an outstanding program, obviously. I like what you said earlier. Use the word unique matchup for this game. I don't want to say, this is a lesser matchup than Georgia or, whatever, because it's not. Look at this team. Look at Desmond Ridder. Look at Jerome Ford, what this offense has been able to do. Look at their secondary. And, overall, coaching-wise, I think it goes back to Luke Fickle. He's an outstanding coach. He knows how to beat Nick Saban. He did it back in 2014, not as a head coach, as an offensive coordinator, but he knows what you have to do to kind of scheme around Nick Saban defenses, I think, to an extent. You look at this team as a whole. I don't know if they've been tested like everybody's, wanted to see throughout the season. Didn't play well against Navy. Didn't play well in some of these games down the stretch, but they did play well against an SMU team that I thought was really good. They did play well against Houston, Memphis. Throughout the season, they didn't play an SEC opponent. They didn't play a Power 5 team other than Indiana and the independent Notre Dame as well. But, this team played some relatively quality opponents and flexed the muscle at times. I think people want to act like Cincinnati just kind of limped into this playoff. No, they dominated their games when they had to. They had some close ones, but that's football. Alabama was on the doorstep of losing to Auburn just 7 days before they absolutely dominated Georgia. So, things can happen. You just have to win the game. They won all of their games. And, they got to this point. So credit to Luke Fickle for what he's built. I'm very surprised. He's still at Cincinnati. I think we could see maybe an NFL hire or something along those lines this offseason. But, credit to Cincinnati. This is not going to be a breeze. I've said it since this matchup was announced. This is not going to be an easy game. And whether Fickle wants to address it or not, they are the flag bearers for not just the American Athletic Conference, not just for Cincinnati, but for the group of five as a whole. So there's some stakes riding on this game for Cincinnati. I think they're going to come out. I don't think they're going to win this game if I had to give a prediction right now, but this is going to be a contest.
I agree. I think they got a really good team. I mean, starts with Desmond Ridder, their quarterback. Jerome Ford, we know him from his time at Alabama. If he was on the team right now, he'd probably be Alabama's featured back, right? You got Sauce and Kobe Bryant as your corners. They're really good. It's really going to come down to how good Alabama, though, is in the trenches. And I think that when you look at this matchup is going to determine if Alabama is going to be able to have their way with Cincinnati, or is Cincinnati going to be able to spread Alabama and give them trouble like we saw with Arkansas. And we saw, at time, the second half against Ole Miss, some momentum there. Will Alabama have trouble blocking for Bryce Young like they did against Auburn? There's all these questions going into this game, but I don't know, Trey. I guess to me, I just feel like, and I'm with you. I mean, I wouldn't want to bet against Alabama. I just feel like that at the line of scrimmage on both sides, Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, Drew Sanders, Phil Mathis. I mean, Alabama's just got so many big guys that I'm guessing are going to be factors in this game.
No doubt. And I think it's, as far as just athlete talent wise, it's not even close. Alabama has gotten the 4 stars, 5 stars for the last 4 years. In Cincinnati, they're starting to kind of turn the corner in recruiting. They don't have quite the player, quite the athlete that Alabama does. But that's, a very narrow way at looking at this game. You look at the stakes and kind of the mentality. 13.5 points. I thought that was a ton. And I think, that's further bulletin board material. Fickle was asked about that yesterday in his press conference as well. And, while they don't look at all that stuff, they know what the deal is. Cincinnati understands that we're playing Alabama. This is the semifinal. This is the Cotton Bowl. We're in the biggest stadium, I think on planet Earth to play a football game for, everything, for the chance to maybe do this again sometime down the road, if at all. So, I don't know if Cincinnati even has to win this game for their fans to feel that moral victory. I don't know if they're okay with the moral victories, but I think if you're Cincinnati and you cover that spread, you lose by maybe within 10 points, within a touchdown, that's a huge win because Alabama, while they haven't had, the greatest Alabama season in the world, and, while they struggled against Auburn at times, LSU, some of these games, they did just dominate Georgia. They are the number one team in the country. They are the Alabama, the standard of college football. And, this is quite the task for their team. I think as far as Desmond Ridder goes, Jerome Ford, some of these big time players, they kind of take the name off the jersey. They take away the seed and they're just going to play their game. But, if you're a 3-star, even less than that, and you go to Cincinnati 3 years ago, not expecting to go be wherever. Now you're in the college football playoff. Now you're playing Alabama. The lights are going to be pretty bright for this game. I don't think that's going to be too much for any of these players, but the stakes are higher. And I think you're going to see that within Cincinnati's sideline. I think they're going to come out with some, really intense energy. Not to say Alabama won't, but this is everything for Cincinnati. Getting to the national title, is probably a fever dream at this point for those fans. So, just getting to be here, getting to play in this game is a big deal. And I think they're going to take advantage of that. I think we could see a close game, at least into the half.
Cincinnati gave Georgia all they wanted last year in their bowl game. So don't forget that. Now, I know there were some opt-outs and some injuries with Georgia, but Cincinnati's still dealing with some of those same issues on their side of things. Hung in there. I don't know that they'll be intimidated by Alabama. I'm really looking forward to this game kicking off. Guys, like and subscribe as you hang out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. And don't forget, we'll have coverage of this all week long here on the site, not just Monday Night Quarterback. And Friday, we'll have the game. Thursday, we'll have the Bama Insider Tailgate Show. I mean, why not, right? We do it before every single Bama game. So, all right, Trey, last thing I want to get into today is Alabama on the injury front. You see Brian Robinson there. He's had time to heal. Trey Sanders waiting for him to get better on the running back core. Jalen Armour-Davis in the secondary has been banged up. We know that Josh Jobe isn't playing. Give us an update on the injury situation for the Crimson Tide, good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah, there's I think there's some good, some bad, but I think mostly it is indifferent. And we kind of knew about Jalen Armour-Davis, and obviously John Mechie will not be here for this game. But outside of those two, it was pretty vague yesterday in the press conference overall. Nick Saban didn't really address any new injuries, didn't give us any new information. I think when you get to this point in the season, you're trying to be as vague as possible about, what kind of weapons you're going to be able to use and who's going to play and this, that, whatever. I think for Alabama, finding a way to not have a serious injury early in the game is going to be huge. You look at most of their injuries this season, they've come in the first 5 minutes of the game. And, that not only changes things for the future when you lose a guy like Jalen Armour-Davis or John Mechie or whoever early in a game, but that really changes things, for that game itself for the next few moments, because, while you can kind of work around that in future weeks, if Malachi Moore goes down, you can find ways to get a Kyrie Jackson ready to go in practice. If you schemed your entire game a certain way on defense or on offense and you lose a key part of that scheme, everything changes. And that's why I think, Alabama looked so poor on the road at Texas A&M. You lose Malachi Moore in the first 5 minutes of that game. And defensively, you have to change a lot around. They weren't able to handle that. You look at John Mechie going down in this Georgia game. Obviously, the offense handled it okay, but, some scheme things just have to change when you see early injuries. If Alabama can avoid injuries as a whole, that's obviously a perfect day. Certainly, when the stakes increase, I think we see the injuries increase as well. We've seen some injuries in these semifinal games last year over the years. It seems to increase a little bit, but if Alabama can just find a way to keep this team healthy through 3 quarters into the 4th quarter, obviously if they get through the game, that's a perfect world. They're going to be a lot better off. Losing a guy early like they have this season, I think, has been a reason for their struggles when they have struggled. And overall, coming into this game, we know who's going to be there. We know who isn't going to be there. I don't think we're going to see Chris Allen in the national title, or, I won't even speculate on all of that. But as far as the non-hypotheticals, what we know right now, Alabama's going to roll out Jamison Williams as wide receiver number 1. Hope for the best at cornerback. I personally think we see Jalen Armour-Davis from, the first snap of this football game throughout the rest of the college football playoff. But if we don't, I think Kyrie Jackson is a fit replacement. And, maybe you move Malachi Moore around. This Alabama team's going to be ready to go.
All right, Trey, that about does it for Monday Night Quarterback. Anything that you want to add before we wrap things up?
Happy holiday, guys. Enjoy it. This is my favorite time of the year, just to take some time to relax and enjoy your family. We got basketball going on right now, so be sure to follow our basketball coverage throughout the week as well. Tennessee coming into town, I believe, on Wednesday to open up the SEC for Alabama hoops. We'll have our rankings update on the website as well throughout the week. But, just another big week. Excited, obviously, for this game. But I'll be talking to you guys before then. We're going to cover it throughout the week, preview everything, get those press conferences for you, some other videos breaking this thing down. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Of course, guys, hit that like button. Get in the comments one more time for me. But overall, really exciting week. What you got going on the rest of the week?
Look, I'm just excited about this game. And we got Kyle Henderson, and we got Tony Tsoukalas, and we got Andrew Bone, us two, to get everyone ready for Alabama football as they take on Cincinnati New Year's Eve day in Dallas for a chance to go and play for another title in Indy and maybe a rematch against the Georgia Bulldogs. Who knows, right? But they got to get by Cincinnati first. But as Trey said, like and subscribe, guys. And don't forget that Monday Night Quarterback is always brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums, right there, 200 feet. I mean, look, there it is through the window, 200 feet away from Bryant-Denny Stadium, right near Denny Chimes, right near the Walk of Champions, right near the Strip. Find out more information at westgateal.com. And I promise you, going to Tuscaloosa and you want a place to stay that puts you right in the heart of everything, Westgate Luxury Condominium. You can rent units. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. You'll be blown away by everything that they have to offer. All right, for Trey Yanity, I'm Mick Gillispie. Guys, have a great week. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Stay tuned. We got a bunch of coverage coming up as Alabama takes on Cincinnati.